What's up, guys? Welcome to episode 82 of the Finale podcast. Today I'm joined by Nahum and Yossef to recap some recent events in the NFL and look ahead to Divisional Round weekend of the playoffs. Guys, how you been?
Doing all right, man. Glad to be back on the pod. Playoff season, best part of the football season.
I've been great. It's been a
Yeah.
long time since I've been on here, but I appreciate you letting me hop on here and dissect these playoff games.
For sure. And I was just looking, and we're at episode 82 right now. The last time you were on the pod, Nahum, was episode 38. So it's been a minute, but we're glad to have you on.
Okay, so
Yeah, it's been a minute, but starting off the episode, I wanted to give Yosef, congrats on winning the NFL points competition for the finale podcast. Round of applause.
Thank you, man. Appreciate
Real
it,
quick.
man.
So last year, finished in last place with Nahum, 153 points. This year you get 189 points. Gets it done, you gotta win. So, gonna let you give a little speech real quick before we get into the episode.
Used to pray for times like this to shine like that. No, but it's been a great time. I think last year, sometimes I might have gotten caught up with some group think, but it was just me and you on this pod, and it was like, just going through it. It was a lot, just more of my takes. It was cool, though, man. I'm glad. I think that last week I was biting my fingernails. It was getting really close. What was his name? He was really close to me.
Sit lad,
Uh,
yep.
yeah, he was really close. So shout out to him. They played really nice. They good picks. I think someone hit a bold prediction in the middle of the year, helped them out. I wasn't able to hit any of my bold predictions, but man, I'm excited to take my little brother to his first NFL game. So shout out Markos, bro. I'm gonna tell him that's all you, boy.
For
Appreciate
sure, I
you.
got you. Have fun
I
at
just
that
want to
game,
add
but
on. I just want to add on to something real quick. Also, congratulations, but I think last year why you ended up in last place with me is because you try to copy all my picks.
For sure. For sure.
I'm glad, I'm glad you're shining.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate your absence.
um and then yeah, Nahum, I got a question for you too. You weren't on the pod this season, but Giants had a tough year. I just wanted to get your takeaway from the season, not only for the Giants but the NFL, in general.
You know, I think this might have been one of the most bizarre seasons I've seen in a while. Just seeing all these rookie quarterbacks start, backups start, and then just like people having just random backups just having like flashes of like greatness. Like we all thought, Tommy DeVito was supposed, he
Yeah,
seemed like he was supposed to be nice, but I mean, and honestly, the thing that surprised me most was C.J. Stroud and what he did in his rookie year. And then like just seeing Jacksonville kind of fall apart. Um, and then just Brian Daboll, sophomore slump, maybe. I'm kind of disappointed with the Giants. There was a lot of injuries that happened, and I'm just hoping we get the offensive line figured out. Hopefully, get a star receiver, maybe sneak a quarterback in there. You never know.
I hope you would.
Mm,
Um, but I mean, I still got faith in Daniel Jones. If Yosef is trying to doubt my faith, I still do got faith in him. So yeah, man, it's been a crazy season.
for sure. What about Saquon? You want him back?
Ah, man, Saquon. As a GM, I play a lot of like Madden franchises, and I personally would give him a deal, but I would give him a team friendly deal. So I don't know if he would appeal to that. And I know he quoted that he's numb to the contract as far as franchise tagging. So at this point, I just want the best for Saquon. Even as a Giants fan, I think he deserves an organization that's ready for him. I don't think we're ready for him. Our
No.
offensive line's not figured out. We don't got weapons. Just it's a whole mess. So I mean, I would love to see him on the Ravens. I feel like they would be a contender for years to come if he was on the Ravens. So
Oh.
that hurts as a Giants fan saying that, but
Yeah,
No.
I'm being realistic.
Very mature take. I'm not gonna lie. I
for
love it.
sure. Yeah, appreciate that. But yeah, let's get into the topics. Starting off, Cowboys, Eagles, NFC East rivals to the Giants. Obviously, early exits to the playoffs.
Yeah.
What are you guys' takeaways from just how their season kind of ended?
Both the Cowboys and the Eagles?
Yeah, start with whoever. Let's start with the Cowboys.
Okay, yeah. Right before we get into that, Nahum, I actually have one more question for you. Who do you want the Giants to pick with their first overall pick this year, first round pick?
Hmm.
I want a quarterback, and I feel like every person that have a struggling franchise, they're gonna want a quarterback. But I think the more mature and realistic option is getting a Joe Alt in the sixth pick overall, or getting some type of tackle. Because I don't really trust Evan Neal. We can move him to guard and have Joe Alt there, and then we'll have more of a solid offensive line.
Mhm.
Also, if Malik Neighbors falls to us, I don't mind grabbing him. I doubt Jaden Daniels will be around, but if
Yeah.
he is around, I would consider that. So I'm stuck between Malik Neighbors, Joe O, and then if Jaden Daniels is available, I will take him because if he's a running quarterback, he can negate most of like the offensive lines, mishaps and stuff like that. So
Okay. Dope. Just wanted your take on that. Appreciate it. Yeah, I was thinking about the Cowboys, and I was watching the game, and obviously here I'm a Vikings fan. Got the Minnesota merch on. It's been hard. It was really hard to watch the Packers draft the third quarterback in concession to Aaron Rodgers and Brett Favre, of course, and ball out. First playoff appearance. He's been balling for the last couple of weeks to end the season. And man, I'm genuinely impressed by that guy. Like I was coming at it from a point of hate. I wanted the Packers to lose. I wanted the Cowboys to win. And frankly, just like that showcase kind of changed me. It kind of moved me. Like that's a good quarterback. Like the throws he was making, just on the throws, just looking at the throws, like off his back foot, making it just leaning back to make it a perfect rifle a couple times, getting it through like the first line of the linebackers in between the safeties, like just some real professional throws were being made by Jordan Love. And I can't do nothing but appreciate it and shout out that man and the Packers organization for, setting him down for a couple of years, letting him, learn the routine of the NFL, come in first season, give him a decent sized leash. And Matt LaFleur was able to cook with that guy. So ultimately, just a great job by those two, Jordan Love, Matt LaFleur. The game plan was amazing, executed phenomenally. The defense was on point. But frankly, this is more. I think it says more about the Dallas team than it does about the Packers. And it's really close. I don't want to take away too much from the Packers, but it was close. But I think this just so shows the level of like fraudulence in the Cowboys system. Defensively, of course, they had plenty of just mishaps and not understanding what to do. And Mike McCarthy, this is your chance to get back at your former employer for firing you and whatnot. And you got this opportunity because Jerry Jones liked you, beat him in the playoffs a years back. He gave you this opportunity to coach for the America's team, and ultimately you side. Really, I'm not a big fan of Dak Prescott, but ultimately, I think the biggest share of the blame does go to McCarthy. There's no way you can't coach up Dak to be a little bit better. It was so obvious that he wanted to get it to number 88 every single time. When it's that obvious in the playoffs, you're not gonna work. It's not gonna work. And uh, I think a couple years down the line, we'll look back at the stats that Dak Prescott had: 400 yards, 32 points, a couple touchdowns, a few touchdowns, might be three touchdowns to Ferguson. That's not how this game played out. This game was despicable, and it was empty calories, empty. Just everything was disgusting to see. So I don't know where the Packers. I mean, where the Dallas goes from here. I think you have to start with the new head coach. I know Bill Belichick's been lobbed up there. Um,
he's staying.
huh?
He's staying. Yeah, he's staying.
He's staying. It's been
Yeah.
confirmed.
Yeah.
I don't know what more you can do with that team, frankly.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on, like you hit almost every point that I was gonna say, but like even like Jordan Love's mechanics was like Aaron Rodgers esque, like the way he was just moving in the pocket, the way he just drops it, flicks it, even like his stance, like you can tell when a quarterback is juiced when he's just moving like that. Like Jordan Love was actually moving like that, and I could see it. And I mean, hey, you sit out like 2 3 years, you gonna get a lot of tips and flows and like we got to see Matt LaFleur's offense like actually, play out because I think it was a lot of times Aaron Rodgers would be trying to have his own type of thing going to it. But LaFleur got to show us his offensive game plan. Everybody looks open. Everybody's flowing with the offense. Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs, and then my favorite receiver right now on the Packers, Jaden Reed. They're all just in sync together, running the right, perfect timing routes, and like even getting that run game going. Like Aaron Jones, like I understand the Cowboys have deficiencies sometimes on the defensive line, but like the way Aaron Jones was just running at them, it was crazy. It was
Yeah.
actually crazy. And then going on to the Cowboy side, like I actually loved watching them, watching their demise just unravel. I think it was hilarious because we all fall. Everybody in America falls for the Cowboys hype, and then when it finally doesn't work out, then they just start pointing fingers and then try to run it back. So I think we're gonna get to see that again with Mike McCartney, and then I think Dak's gonna stay and he's gonna be playing too because he has 1 year on his contract. They're not gonna want to start Trey Lance. I don't think. So I mean, I think it's hilarious. I think they say CeeDee Lamb's not a diva, but I think he is. I think the reason why they try to force feed him is because CD has that strong personality. Um, but I want to ask both you guys this question. Do you think CD's number one receiver on a team? Because I can't tell. I don't think Brandon Cooks is a good two, but I don't know if CD's number one either.
I don't
I
think Gallup.
mean,
Go ahead. Take this one, Marcos.
all right. Just yeah, real quick. I mean, statistically, I believe he had the greatest season in Cowboys history for a receiver. So I don't know if, like you said, if that's due to like just him being force fed or whatever, but I think he's a good receiver, really good receiver. I don't think he's in the class of like the elite ones.
He's not
But
top five though, right?
top what?
Top
Five.
five.
Top five? He's top 10 for me.
Okay.
Um, obviously the stats are really good. I'm just at face value, I don't see him being like top five right now. He's obviously a really good receiver. I just don't think um he's in that tier. But number one receiver, he's a number one receiver on like plenty of teams right now. Just there's levels to where I'd say like I can't compare him to Tyreek and Jefferson.
What do you think it was on the Cowboys, like offensively? Then do you think it was just all on Dak? Because I honestly couldn't tell. The offensive line looked like they were blocking. Dak was making good reads. I mean, he had a couple mistakes, but other than that, like their defense should have been able to keep him in the game, but they didn't essentially. But I mean, I don't want to put all the blame on Dak, but I mean, I think everybody is going to anyways. Like he's a quarterback, it's gonna have to go down like that. But I really think they're just missing a solid like receiver next to
Y'all hear me?
CD.
Yep. Michael
Y'all hear me?
Gallup and
Gallup.
Cook, I think both are number two receivers ultimately, so it's
They're
hard.
not good though, in my opinion. I don't
Gallup
think
is good. I think Gallup is a good number three. Like if he's your number three, you're okay. But if he's your number two, that's not fine. Cooks is not a number two. So I do think ultimately they lack that number two talent. And like Marcos was saying, like he's not a top tier number one, but I do think he's a number one. And if he had more of like a remember back in the day with the Packers, they had like Jordy Nelson and Greg Jennings. Like neither of those were like top tier number one options. Maybe you could argue Jennings was for a little bit,
they
but
complement each other.
they complemented each other. So I think they're
Mhm.
lacking that secondary wide receiver too. Even like a Justin Jefferson and Addison, like you just need a second option that you can rely on. And like I don't think they had that. And I think it's a combination of that and Dak Prescott not having pocket awareness. I think he was leaving the pocket a little too early. And that wasn't like one, that was because he wasn't seeing separation. And he was like, if there's no separation that you're seeing from your receivers, ultimately, like you can't just sit in the pocket forever. So maybe that's why he was like leaking out of the pocket early, but his lack of ability because the O line was blocking for him pretty decently, giving him like a good 2-3 beats. And like around like the second beat, instead of sticking in there and see what throw he can make on his, is still in his stance, he was looking to get out a little too early. And now you're outside of the pocket. He's not a good quarterback when he's outside of the pocket. He's not making those throws like on the run. So like I don't think he was playing to his benefit, and that kind of hints at the offensive play calling. Like you have to like coach your quarterback to stay in the pocket a little bit more, but two, like he has to be able to see the reads to make him comfortable to sit in that pocket. So ultimately, I think it's a combination of bad offensive play calling and a bad system in general.
I mean,
And
that's them all year though. That's them all year. They're known to just throw it down the field, no
you know,
like slants, no nothing. It's just straight down the field. And it's like I don't think they have I
they
don't think
put.
they have the players to even match up with that offensive system that Mike McCartney wants to run with them.
I see.
So,
I see. Okay, so kind of like a bad symmetry of
a
what they
bad
have.
scheme for their players that they have.
Sure, sure. I can see that. I ultimately do think it's something about the scheme and Dak Prescott. It's like I don't want to put it all on Dak. There's a lack of quality receivers, and the scheme doesn't complement the players. So, yeah.
Also, I think they caught up to a hot Packers team. I would say like a like a fearless Packers team. I don't think it was the right time to catch them earlier in the season. Completely different team than they are now. I think another thing too is like the loss of Ezekiel Elliott. You really saw it throughout the season. Tony Pollard just, I don't think he's that guy that they might have thought he was gonna be, given what he's shown in prior years. He's still decent, but I think they missed, another guy out of the backfield to take the pressure off of Dak in these situations. Because we've seen them have playoff losses before, but it wasn't, as drastic as this one.
Mhm.
Um, so I think they got to address that too. And then defensively was just atrocious. I mean, the Packers' game plan was just, make sure to put all their attention on Micah Parsons, and then the rest is just, they can do what they got to do in the offense. And Aaron Jones had his moments, 3 touchdowns, I believe, and then Jordan Love was, even when he was hurried, like he threw off the back foot to Dobbs, I want to say, or Wicks, one of them.
Uh-huh.
Or no, it was for Wicks for the touchdown. Even I remember one
Oh,
of
you talking
them.
about that one? Okay.
Yeah, that one too. But then there was also the one where he threw off his back foot to one of them in the middle of the field. If you remember
Dobbs, yeah.
that. Yeah. So I'm like, bro, like the pressure, even that like you got to give credit to the opposing team in that situation. But I
Mhm.
think overall, like that was the worst defensive performance they had all season. You saw last year they had a really good season, and then playoffs just didn't work out, and they let go of Kellen Moore. So you could potentially see them let go of Dan Quinn, even though he's one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. You could see them making a change just because, you know, maybe you don't want to run it back. But
Yeah.
we'll see what they do. I think there's things to look at with this team moving forward if they want to avoid these consistent playoff disappointments, though.
Like what?
First of all, address the run game. I think you need a better run game.
Mm.
Tight end, I mean, they lost Dalton Schultz, but I think Jake Ferguson's really good, so they don't need to really address that. Additional receiving talent for sure will help go a little bit
Mhm.
younger in that direction. Find someone in the draft because this is a really good draft for receivers. Defensively, I
Do you think
mean,
Diggs coming back would have helped their defense? Gilmore was a little banged up as well as number 1 and 2 corners.
who coming back?
Diggs.
Trevin Diggs. I mean, he was injured, so I mean, if he is he like supposed to leave or something?
No, no, no. I'm saying like he was injured, so like bringing him back in the
Oh,
fold next year, and then Gilmore was also a little banged up for that game. Having
yeah,
him,
yeah, yeah. Okay, right. I got what you're saying. No,
yeah,
but I think I like Trayvon Diggs. I like Dron Bland, but it's just like a lot of like the interceptions are really the stat that you're seeing with those two, and that's what's really popping out. But I think their defense got a little bit of holes, particularly in the secondary that was exposed in this game. So for sure you got good defensive backs, but maybe schematically it's just not all there. And you started to even see it in that Lions game too. So I think moving forward, potentially try to go a little bit younger in certain areas. They got a veteran team like certain guys still there from that's been there for a while, like Demarcus Lawrence too. So maybe perhaps it's time for him to move on and find someone else to go in. But I just think they need some change because they've tried this roster for a couple of years. I don't think it's working anymore. They need to just find something different.
yeah.
Joseph, you said that you gave the credit, like you want to give credit 50-50 to Packers and Cowboys, like based on like the takeaways. I think we have to give it all on the Packers. They're the youngest playoff team to ever like enter a playoff team, and then they blow out a favorite Cowboys team at home, and they're
Mhm.
like unstoppable at home. So I mean, kudos to the Packers all in all. I think it's more about the Packers than it is about the Cowboys' loss.
I agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I don't think it's negligible that the Cowboys underperformed. I do think we overrated them as like you said, the nation falls for the Cowboys every year, and in the playoffs they just fail to deliver. I really do think like Dak might just not have that caliber, that like that level in his game. But I also never
I
believed.
put them in the category with Kirk Cousins too. Like they're gonna
No,
give you nice stats in the season, but like when it comes down to it, they're not gonna give you a Super Bowl.
nah. In my idea, bro, like I think Kirk is different. Kirk could win the Super Bowl. Like I think he can make those plays. He doesn't get overwhelmed and he doesn't just track one guy. Like he makes reads better than Dak did ultimately.
There's better weapons. So I
Sure.
mean,
Right.
I would say, you know what I'm saying? But like, I think personally, like Dak, Kirk, like the elite game managers, like they're called game managers for a reason. They're not at the like the Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes esque type of. We're
Right.
gonna go in and we're gonna go into a playoff game and we're gonna dominate. You know
There's
what I'm
some
saying?
game managers who can win the chip and some who can't
Yeah.
though. I think Dak and Kirk are on two opposite sides of that line, frankly. They are both game managers, I agree. But like well, I don't think Dak could
I'll speak
actually
too highly now because I haven't seen Kirk do anything in the playoffs. So
I mean, he's got out the first round a couple times.
yeah,
I mean, neither has Lamar Jackson though. So
right, you right. I do like that offensive coordinator for the Ravens though. So I mean, I think
Yeah,
that offense is way more dynamic,
way better. Way
better
better.
weapons.
Pieces.
So
yeah,
I think
That's
yeah,
true. We'll get into that too.
for
So
we'll
sure.
get into that. We'll get into that. But I don't think you need like a superstar anyway to win a Super Bowl. I mean, we've seen or we see right now what's the remaining field of quarterbacks remaining. You got Jordan Love, you got Jared Goff, Baker Mayfield, Brock Purdy in the NFC. One of those guys is going to be in the Super Bowl. So it's just like,
disgusting.
it's kind of crazy. You don't really need like a guy like that's all, all the
You're right.
attention on him. Like you really just need a guy that's going to wrap it all together. So
Yeah.
I think there's a pros and cons to really just the game manager sort of
Sounds like
approach.
it sounds like you just defined Brock Purdy.
But my issue with Dak is actually his interceptions. Like ultimately, he panics and throws interceptions. Where I've never seen Kirk do that. Like frankly, I don't see him panicking throwing interceptions. And like even Brock Purdy, he doesn't panic and throw interceptions. Like how is Dak still doing that in year whatever? Like that's kind of embarrassing. Like a pick six at the end of the half was completely watching CD the whole fucking route and then throwing it to the linebacker. Like what are we doing? Like
I could say the same thing about you when we play Madden. You literally stare down a receiver, spin to the receiver,
I'm
and
not
you
getting
throw
paid
straight
$40 million to
all
play
the
this
time.
game. I'm not getting paid 40 mil, bro. You're right. I do that. That's my bad, bro. Like, yeah.
No, but I got a question though, because I mean, like these past few seasons, like the statistically anyway, the Cowboys have been really good on both sides of the ball. So like, what do you think needs to change? Because, we see all this regular season success, but like ultimately it doesn't work in the playoffs. So like at what point are we like, you know, like what needs to change? Because it's like they put it all out there like that they're improving, but it just when the moment comes, they just don't get it done. So what do you think needs to change?
I'm gonna
I
go
would
straight to
say
coaching. I never liked McCarthy from the jump. I never liked him with the Packers, and I thought his time was right when he left. I didn't like when he like ultimately he got a
got a
ring
ring.
12 years ago, bro. Of the
Got a,
NBA. I mean, of the NFL. Like, man's got a ring literally in that same era and has been riding that. I personally don't like McCarthy. I don't think he's the type of quarterback to win it for you. I mean,
I personally think the common denominator for all these years in the playoffs is Dak Prescott. I mean, I know they had their struggles with Tony Romo and I mean Troy Aikman won it, but like Dak Prescott has been the common denominator in all these playoff losses. So I mean, I think you start looking at a quarterback. I think you start
yeah,
start thinking about what an elite game manager where you can pay him cheap and then get load up on offense and defense. Get another star receiver and get like a game manager quarterback and make it look like the 49ers. If you can't beat them, you might as well join them. You know what I'm saying? So get rid of that $45 million quarterback, get you something that, can start the car and move it, and then you have your options that you can afford.
yeah, they do have Trey Lance in there, hopefully, trying to come up that ladder. But ultimately, I do agree. It's a combination of quarterback and head coach, and they're just like there's some type of like lack of synergy amongst those two, or one of those two are just a faulty part. What do you
All
think it
right.
is?
I mean, I don't know though. It's just like
Hard question, frankly.
it's hard because like they always look good like in the moments that don't really matter, but when it comes down to it, they don't get it done. So it's very like a hard one like to process because they put it all out there that they've changed or whatever, but then it's always like what's going to happen in the playoffs, and that's the disappointing part about this team because there's so many good parts to it, but there's just that old DNA that's just stuck with them and it's not leaving their system. So yeah, I don't really know like if going like for Trey Lance or just a different quarterback is going to change things because I still think Dak's a good quarterback. I think Mike McCarthy's a good coach. He's done good things there for sure, better than what Jason Garrett was doing, in my opinion. But I just
Better.
don't know if they need to make like I don't think I think it would have been dramatic to let go of Mike McCarthy personally, but I also don't know like if they can continue to waste some of their years that they are kind of doing right now with just losing in the first round.
Yeah, could it be the owner? He has
Jerry
fingerprints all over
Jones.
every move.
He's
Yeah.
also won Super Bowls, so I mean we can't hate on him either.
I
He's
Since
mean,
one
when
of the
was the
few
last
owners
time
that
that
have
happened? That
won
was,
Super
right, he
Bowls.
might have dementia at this point, bro. You're talking about the youthful
it
Jerry.
was like the '90s, right?
I mean, he had the formula. Maybe he just needs to. I don't know. You
Yeah.
might be right. Jerry Jones. He's
He
a
did,
toxic
he's
owner.
kind of like overly, like in the operations, and maybe that's causing. I really don't
Sure, he
know.
helps draft guys. He's in the draft process. Most owners are hands off. So, I mean, I don't know.
It's a tough puzzle to crack for sure.
All
Same with
right.
the
Same with the Eagles. Let's go over to the Eagles. Like lost in the first round, but before that they just have been pretty bad this last like 4 weeks plus, probably since that San Fran game. Um, what do you guys think of like how their season ended?
You know, I think you said something week 4, I believe, or week 3, right after the Eagles played the
Vikings.
Vikings. You mentioned something and it kind of stuck with me, and I think it played out this last week. And what you said was ultimately you said they have a new offensive coordinator, a new defensive coordinator, and there's kind of a disconnect between what the old regime wanted to do and what this regime wants to do. And it's very similar to what the old regime wanted to do, except they don't have those actual brains making those real-time decisions. And those real-time decisions get hampered by that lack of, direct influence from, kind of that ideology. So it's kind of like, you know what I'm saying? It's kind of like second level thinking where like last year it was directly from the brain that thought of this ideology that was schematically calling those offensive
Mm-hmm.
and defensive. I think
You're
ultimately,
saying it's
like,
not organic.
I'm saying it's not like they lost the brain power that made them the Eagles last year, where they still have very similar talent and like
Personnel. Yeah.
personnel, but they just don't have that scheme, that touch, the touch on the scheme is just a little wrinkled. Whereas if last year was coming directly from the brains who invented it. So I think it has something to do with that. Ultimately, like that's my biggest takeaway is the defensive and offensive coordinators just simply don't hit the same as they did last year.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, I think the coaching staff in general is a joke. I heard Sirianni doesn't even know football like that, and he's not even an offensive coordinator, and he's not a defensive coordinator. Like he had Shane Steichen, which I think is really he's a really impressive coach, and you see what he's doing with Indianapolis with a backup quarterback, and then
Mhm.
you have Jonathan Gannon, who his defense in Arizona looks solid, and I think they're going to be a nice team pretty soon here, and then you add Matt Patricia, a guy who literally has destroyed franchises, and then like you add all that with like players and then their egos, and then Sirianni thinking he knows what's best, and then you just get a disaster, honestly. And you're down bad and cooked when my Giants win with Tyrod Taylor. And I know they wanted to win that, just to get some momentum, but they couldn't. So it's like just like a whole bunch of things piling on, honestly. And it's just like there's coaching schemes, like what you alluded to, Yossef. They don't have that touch. And I think it was because of the coordinators for sure. And I think it's obvious and apparent. And I mean, just like how people hype up the Cowboys, they hype up the Eagles too. Like even since I was born, they were hyping up the Eagles with Michael Vick, Deshaun Jackson, like all the time. And so it's like they have high expectations. They have a high roster where it's really talented offensively and defensively, but it
Yeah.
doesn't match up to what they're producing on the field, even though they're doing it last year. So if that's the case, you got to go coach. Like You got to go coach. You got to go the coordinators. I would take the whole staff out, and I would, insert somebody else in. And I'm surprised they haven't fired Sirianni because they fired Doug Peterson, and he got him a chip. And then the next year, their season wasn't even that bad, and they fired him. So it's just like, I don't
Yeah.
know, ownership, Howie Roseman, it's all red flags to me, especially with the Eagles. So
Did Doug Peterson get fired the year after, or like how long
He
was it?
did
I think it was like
2 years after the chip, I think.
it
You said
wasn't
two or
two, it was
three?
like a year after.
No, I think it was the year. So he won the chip that year. He got a season. The season after the season without a chip, I think he got cut
It
off
was the
after that.
season where they didn't make the playoffs. Or no, they made the playoffs and they
Nah,
played the
head coach from 2016 to 2021,
When did they win the chip? 2018,
2017.
17. Okay.
oh, so they gave him a couple years. But I mean, Sirianni didn't even win a ring, so we'll see what happens. I don't think he'll ever get
True.
there again. So I don't
Last year
know.
was the best chance, man. I don't
And
know.
like we're talking about the downfall of the Eagles, but shout out the Buccaneers. Like Baker Mayfield was checked
Hmm.
off. People were like destroying him everywhere, saying like, "Oh yeah, he's just a failing quarterback. This team's not even serious." People had them at the bottom projection, but guess what? They were fighting. They did what they needed to do. I think Baker was very resilient this year. Throughout all the things he's been through.
Yeah.
And I really didn't think the coach was that good, and he turned out to be pretty half decent. I really like the offensive coordinator also, and they're utilizing the weapons that they have with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Cade Otton.
Yeah.
Rashad White, he didn't look good last year running the ball, but he looks very efficient this year. And I think that opened up the pass game, being able to get positive yards on first down to help Baker. But he didn't really look that efficient with Tom Brady at all. But even that defense is lights out. They got Levante David, they got Devin White,
Mhm.
Antoine Winfield. They had Antoine Winfield Jr. They have all these pieces together, and they're like putting it together. I'm not gonna lie, they are missing something. I don't know. I'm over here hyping up Baker, but I also don't know if he's a Super Bowl winning quarterback. I want him to prove me wrong because I like the underdog, but like yeah, hats off to them. Like they get a lot of the credit for sure.
I think it's their poise that ultimately the dog within Baker that ultimately ended up exposing the Eagles' lack of dog, I think. And like you said, I know AJ Brown didn't play in that game, but like that's a big loss for the Eagles too. Like it's your number one wide receiver going through the whole year, a top, arguably top five, definitely top 10 wide receiver in the league. Just
With
gone.
AJ, they still would have lost though.
Yeah, but ultimately, like I think that actually indicates like what's going on, like in the locker room. You know what I'm saying? Like
Straight coaching. It's all coaching.
there's definitely some toxicity going on, and the Baker Mayfield led Buccaneers are the opposite of toxicity. They're a football team that's united with one goal, just trying to go out there and win. And I think they've embodied the dog mentality of Baker Mayfield. And ultimately, bro, shout out Baker, man. Shout out Baker. I think he is he's one of the best 32 quarterbacks in the league and deserves a starting spot without a doubt. So he's just shout out to him.
You deserve a contract extension.
I think he does because they're who are the Bucks gonna get? That's not him, frankly.
How much? If he wants a 5-year contract, you give it to him.
No, I would give him some 4 years, something similar to Daniel Jones, maybe even a little less, because he doesn't have that big market for him, I would assume, as much as Danny did last year.
Hmm. Yeah, I'd say 3 years probably for Baker. He's been really good this season. Um, but yeah, in that game, like the Bucks just had their way. Philadelphia, you really saw like all their inefficiencies in that game. The defensive like mistakes, missed tackles, like David Moore's touchdown and then Trey Palmer's touchdown. Just it
Like
looked like
who
he was
is
just
David
run.
Moore? I had to look him up.
I knew he was on the Seahawks at one point, but like other than that, like I haven't heard much from him.
What do you
But
think that indicates, Marcos? The missed
huh?
tackles.
Yeah.
What do you think that shines a light to?
Hey man, I think that shines a light to the culture, the rotten. Like it's just rotting right now. I feel like. And at one point, it was really good. They're really buying into that Philadelphia identity. At one point, Sirianni, we've always seen him to be some like he's really embraced, embodied like the culture that they're trying to build. He's been very emotional. Saw it last year. We saw it even after the Chiefs game this year. You know, he's really just buying into everything that they have going on. But you know, it's lately it just seems like stuff is decaying. You know, even like they were talking about that the last play against the Seahawks where they improvised on that last play and went against what Sirianni wanted, and they just went deep, try to go for like a pass interference or whatever, but it got intercepted. And then I think Sirianni went into the media and he was just defending AJ Brown or whatever. But then AJ Brown a few weeks later was just like, "Nah, that was on us." But shout out to coach or whatever. Like that just shows who he is. He's got all my respect. And it's just like, even though that's cool and all, like afterwards, it just kind of like it raises question marks for me, like why that's even like a thought to go into that direction. So I think they're losing some of the identity that they've built. And that really showed the last month of the season because they were not looking like anything that they were showing, you know, this past year. But I think I don't know if I'd make a change yet at head coach for sure at the coordinator positions. They brought in like a nice defensive coordinator. I thought coming into the season, somebody who even like I thought the Vikings should have gotten at one point. So I mean, they obviously demoted him for Patricia, which didn't do themselves any favors either. I think they just got to look at both sides of the ball where they can improve because offensively they weren't doing much better either.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yes.
keep Sirianni. Uh, Unfortunately, you know that's the last run for Jason Kelsey. But it was just surprising. Like offensive line wasn't holding up. The Bucks just pressured them all night, and
He
just
said it's not official though.
I
He's
mean he
probably
doesn't want it to. He doesn't want it to be like. I feel like he doesn't want it to be not on his terms. You know, like just leak to the media. I think he wants to actually make an announcement and thank the people that he wants to thank or whatever, something like that. But if it's not official, cool. But um, you know, they're getting older. Darius Slay, Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, guys are getting older. So, you know, this was supposed to be the year they ran it back, but we're just seeing now like how hard it is to get back to that point again. You know, like the Bengals probably thought they'd be back in the Super Bowl by now after making it that one year, right? So it's very hard to get back to the promised land. You know, as a Giants fan, you probably know. It's been a minute. So but hey, y'all got there in this century, so shout out to y'all. But I mean it's very hard to go back. Um and
yeah.
I think they've got to, you know, not try to keep fighting at, you know, straws. Maybe just come back and reassess like what needs to change and make just to move forward. Because if they continue like this, then yeah, Sirianni for sure. If they continue like this, Sirianni for sure is out of there.
And you mean continue like one
My fault. What'd you say?
more year of this?
My fault. What'd you say?
You mean like as you when
Could
you
you
say
repeat that?
continue like
My
this, you
bad.
mean yeah, like when you say continue like this, you mean like one more year of this probably? And you
If they
really
just con-
yeah, go ahead.
if they continue at this rate, I mean, and they do go, you know, into the season with Sirianni, I mean, he could be a mid-season, you know, firing for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Ultimately, I think you're right about the culture. It's really just the lack of like the embodiment of that Philadelphia city, and like the fans are very like intelligent when it comes to like that type of like the emotional intelligence when they can sense something's off with the team. I think even from like the outside perspective, we can tell. So for sure, their fans can tell. So I think the culture is a little bit off, and I think that might have to do with why Jason Kelsey is probably not willing to run it back. Like if he had hope that they could run it back, I think he would play one more year. But ultimately, like I think he doesn't believe in the culture that is bred in that locker room. And after influential guys leave the locker room last year, they're paying a lot of guys on defense for that defense to fold like that too. Like I don't know, man. If I was an old person like that, one more year and deciding to come back or not, like what are you thinking? Like, I'm putting in more than anything. I'm putting in, do we have the talent? Obviously, we have the talent. Do we have the personnel? I mean, the head coaching, like the coaching personnel. I don't know.
Hmm.
Ultimately, the culture's not there. How do you buy into another season? I don't know.
Hey man, I think the GM got to make a move. It's Howie Roseman, I think his name is. I think he's got to really make a move, like he did, you know, bringing in AJ Brown before the Super Bowl run. I think you got to make a move to really, you know, change things around because as it is right now, yeah, they had the same personnel trying to run it back this year, but they didn't, like you said, have the same brain power, and it really showed. So For sure. If you get the right coordinators, like we saw what happened with the Vikings, Brian Flores versus Donatel. Like I think just getting the right coordinators can really change things around and make, you know, the Philadelphia Eagles a tough team to beat, as they were starting off the season. But I think the problem all year was their defense and their offensive like consistency, and we really saw it play out in these last however many weeks it was, 7 weeks. Because I mean, after the Vikings game, I was just like, yo, this defense is not that good. It's not the same. Offensively, they're not the same. They're relying a lot on those, tush push plays, a lot on the run game, and when that wasn't working, it just you really saw it with on the sideline, AJ Brown getting frustrated and everything like that. So, um, I like Sirianni ultimately, just his personality and everything, but I think they need to make sure they hit on these off-season moves. Otherwise, like after their last Super Bowl, it might be a minute till they get back to another one.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how their defensive personnel situation goes this season. I think they paid a lot of guys on that side of the ball, and they underperformed definitely. So questions need to be asked.
What do y'all think about James Bradbury, man? He kind of been getting exposed too in the media.
That's one of the guys I'm talking about, frankly.
I thought he was good on the Giants. You
Yeah, he
know,
was. He was good
last
on.
year I thought he was good too.
He was good. I think honestly, you just get a certain age where like you just I don't know what it is. People just regress, especially football
Yeah.
players, especially cornerbacks, because it's such a
Yeah.
hard physical, position to play. It's just like people regress for sure. You'll probably see Slay regressing a bit too. You know
Yeah.
what I'm especially like just trying to track receivers because receivers are only getting faster nowadays, so it's just hard to stay on top of them. And then like the tackling, he was known to be like a physical guy, so seeing him miss all those tackles, I don't even think it results in the player. I think it's the coaching and how they're coaching their players.
Mhm.
In all honesty, so you can blame the players, but in all honesty, it comes from the top down.
A scheme could fix it, but yeah, ultimately, I think he put too much pressure on himself. I think he just talked a little bit too much in the offseason. Even last season, it's easy to talk when you guys are having a great season, but like ultimately those words like will come, like he kind of put a target on his back. They just made it to they were the NFC. They were talking about how Jalen Hurts was the best quarterback in the league and how they were, the best team in the NFC. So it just put a target on their backs unnecessarily, which is, never good, especially when you're maybe on the back half of your career.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'll see what happens with the Eagles. I mean, this is kind of like showing me like how hard it is to like maintain consistency in the NFL. And this is also why I respect the 49ers so much in Shanahan and Lynch because they're consistently like in the dance every year and really competitive, not just like being there. They're actually like one of the best two teams in the NFC for the past few seasons. So whether it's with Garoppolo or Purdy, like it really doesn't matter. They got it going for them. So I think you got to cherish, when you do get to that moment because if you don't get it done, then we might not see you again for a little bit. So shoot, might not see the Lions again in the playoffs for a minute if they don't get the Super Bowl this year. So fingers crossed on that. No, but
Nah, I think we'll see them. They have so much young talent.
hey man, the Bengals have young talent too.
I kind of see what you're saying, Marcos. It's like
It's not that easy, but I mean, they're not gonna just fall off the earth. But you know what I'm saying? Like it's gonna be hard to get back to this point. Like it's not easy.
For sure. For sure. Agreed.
Yeah. Plus, NFC North's getting better. Like Packers might actually be legit next year. So
Bears. My draft
Hey,
of
I'm
the
not gonna
Bears.
lie, everybody's looking nice, like way nicer than the Vikings. Just saying. I know this is off topic.
facts. I agree. I agree.
It's gonna be juicy regardless of what they do. And then Packers are the Packers and
I still think Kirk is the best quarterback in the division going into next year.
I don't even want to sign him if I were y'all. Like
Yeah.
I'll go get myself like
I want.
I would try to get myself a quarterback.
I want.
I
I
would
want.
sell my future off for Caleb Williams. I know the Bears wouldn't trade, but I would do it.
I
Caleb with throwing at Jordan Addison, USC
have
days.
the 11th pick. I want Mix. The
Oh, Knicks, he's
Next,
a little too old.
is that's the dude from Washington?
Washington, that's Penix Jr.
he's from
Penix.
Oregon.
No, I meant to say Penix. I like
Oh,
Penix.
okay.
I think
Too many injury concerns.
I think he has too many injuries. That's true. But I just like his maturity, his pocket presence, his arm, and like all that stuff. I think is very transferable.
Gives me more physical Tua. a more physical, quick on his, a little quicker on his feet, more physical Tua.
What do you mean? Tua can't make every pass. I
I mean,
really.
Penix is more of like a timing thing for him. Like he just knows how to time the ball. Like
Mm,
I don't know, he just gives me that type of vibe. Like if he was replaced with Tua, the team would be even better. Is basically what I'm trying to say. Like so, yeah.
okay.
I just
Uh,
heard the comparison and I agreed totally. Like I was just one day listening to Colin
yeah.
Cowherd and he was just like, "Yeah, Tua is just he
Not
like
Colin.
Michael Penix Jr. is actually like way more physical and he could be that guy for Miami." And I was just looking at it. I'm looking at his highlights. I'm like, "Yeah, that makes sense." But
I like him. I think if he sits 1 year under Kirk, give Kirk 2 year contract, and then run
he
it
wants
back.
the bag, man. So
He doesn't want it back. He said he'll be willing to take a hometown discount.
yeah, but that means he's
He
gonna want to stay longer. He's
said
not
I
gonna
made.
get a 1 or 2 year deal discount.
You
And
don't
so
realize that's a positive thing for the Vikings. That's an asset that we're
Yeah.
retaining.
I know, but
I
like
think
you guys are gonna have to keep him long term if you guys are gonna give him a discount.
But that's what I'm saying is a long-term contract is an asset. That's not a negative because then we can trade him with 3 years left on his deal, which is an asset compared to.
He might be cooked by then. He's an immobile quarterback. All he needs is one more good injury and he's cooked.
I promise you, there's at least 10 teams that are thirsty for bro. At least 10 that are thirsty, like thirsty.
Okay.
Damn near Miami. Fuck you talking about. Might be thirsty for bro.
For sure.
hey
I'm not
man,
gonna lie.
Kurt.
Pieces, JJ Addison, like I'm trying to run it back. Hawkinson, like stop playing.
I'm just trying to see a quarterback that fits their time range.
I get it.
You know?
I get it. I agree. I agree.
I think it's only fair for the best receiver in the league to have a quarterback that's his age.
I mean, yeah, there's plenty of quarterbacks available. Personally, I'd want them to like I heard that they were trying to trade up for Anthony Richardson last year, but it might have just been like a crazy rumor. Honestly, if they tried to do that for Jaden Daniels, I'd be all for it. I like Jaden Daniels a lot. He's a good quarterback. He's
He'd be
does a
nasty,
lot of
bro.
the things Kirk can't do, and he's very accurate.
You think he's
Hey, I'm
accurate?
not gonna lie.
No?
If you guys get Jaden Daniels, I will low key become a fan on the low, on the
Oh, you're
DL.
already a fan. Stop it.
No, I'm not a fan.
Man.
I hate the Vikings because of Kirk and just like like it's just so bland. It's just Kirk and nice receivers. Like Kirk is never gonna take you to the promised land. I know that. We all know that.
JJ,
We're
you
not
like Addison. You know you like him.
shit. The Giants should have took him, to be honest with you. But
Yeah, no. Addison falling that deep was ridiculous. Even the Ravens should have took him over
Zay
Brody.
Flowers,
I was
Quentin
mad because I'm like
Johnston to the
the
Chargers.
Vikings will never get a receiver. They have so many other holes to fill, and then the Vikings get Jordan Addison. I'm just like, I almost broke my TV because I know the Giants were gonna get him. I just had the feeling.
That was a pretty big hole that we needed, though. Our wide receiver two was lacking. It was
Yeah, cornerback would have been nice for you guys. Maybe a safety, maybe a
quarterback.
linebacker, maybe a D tack, like somewhere on the defense. You know what I'm saying?
Quarterback. We needed a cornerback bad last year.
Yeah.
But
And
the
then
year, I mean, didn't we drafted Andrew Booth and Lewis Cine and they didn't materialize. So
Lewis Cine
like,
is cooked, and y'all could have got Kyle Hamilton. Y'all could have got Kyle Hamilton. Real stuff. Y'all could have got him.
No, that
yeah,
was
we traded
Lewis.
back, but we got Darisaw in that draft. So
Yeah.
Okay,
Good.
that
That's
kind of equals out a little bit.
PPR. This last year is PPR number one ranked left tackle, man. He got some
And
hope.
Kyle Hamilton, second year All Pro.
No, I agree. We fumbled that bag. You can't. You can't.
Lewis Cine barely trying to make the roster now at this point.
What's seen is not heard of, bro. You know
I
what?
knew he was a bust to begin with, bro. And I'm
Don't
like, he was the last pick in the first round. I'm like, wow, that's how the first round's gonna end. I was
bro,
like,
think back. Who was the last good defensive back the Vikings drafted early?
Xavier Rhodes. What was he in the first round? I think he was first round. I
Yeah,
think
first round. That's
yeah, he was,
2013 though. So
I was
like
gonna
10
go
years
way
ago.
back and say Antoine Winfield.
stop, bro. Stop, bro. Xavier Rhodes
Anyways,
was him.
man, it's been a minute. So they either way, if they drafted somebody, they could have drafted like, they could have missed. They've tried. Um, who is it?
Um,
Dude,
the
that
lanky dude. I forgot his name.
no, I'm not forgetting it. Not Gladney, but who's that one
Oh,
dude? like
What
ended the
number? What
first
number?
round. Short dude. He went to UCF. It's like Holmes or something.
Yeah, I don't know.
Mike.
Mike Holton?
No. Oh, bro, we just had him. He was on the Lions too. He was on the Chiefs last year. Short dude.
Booth?
Hold up. No,
Booth
no,
is
no,
recent.
no, 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 no.
Booth is not on
I need
the
a
Lions.
hold up, hold up.
Actually, I
Bro,
would love to.
he's a short cornerback.
We also got that
Um,
corner from Texas A&M, lanky, tall guy. He was a fumble too.
I'm gonna get this dude's name. Oh, Mike Hughes, my bad. Hey,
Mike Hughes. Okay. Okay. I
yeah,
remember.
first round, miss. Trey Waynes, kind of a miss. It's been a minute since we tried to get that number one corner, but we haven't found it. So, hey, man, some teams are able to find their, Tariq Woolens. Some teams can just find a find a guy, but Vikings haven't been able to. I wish they could. I think Cameron Bynum's a late round pick, but he's been pretty good. But yeah, we haven't really been able to. Hopefully, Mekhi Blackman's a guy, but Cameron Dantzler wasn't as well. So we
Yeah.
try. We gotta find somebody.
I like that Bynum dude for sure for you guys. He's pretty solid.
It just sucks that he's the only one. Like, he's been getting
Yeah,
like every highlight you see on against the Vikings is against him. It's just so sad because he's our only.
Metellus. I mean,
Tellus and Steve.
Harrison Smith. Yeah, he needs. We've had Harrison Smith a little bit too long. I think it's time. So
A little
I'm
too.
gonna I'm gonna miss that assassin, man. He's one of my favorite players of the 2010s on the Vikings, like without a doubt. Shout out,
yeah, I
bro.
wish we could have got a Super Bowl for him, but
Went from him into nursing home real quick.
Who's the guy we had in between Metellus and right before Metellus, the tall dreads? He was nice for a year as soon as we didn't re-sign him.
oh,
He
Andrew
fell off.
Harris.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
He was nice with us, and then the very next year he fell
You
off.
to the Eagles? Yeah, I think he went to the Eagles.
Completely
Yep.
fell off. I was mad we didn't re-sign him, but he was getting old, so
Oh,
good
my fault.
call.
Anthony Harris, my fault.
Anthony Harris, okay.
You gotta think about Deontay Banks.
Man, this became a Vikings vent line all of a
All right,
sudden.
yeah, yeah, let's move on. Let's move on. Good talk though, Vikings talk. But last current event, Patriots hiring Gerard Mayo as head coach, uh, replacing Bill Belichick, who I believe is about to conduct a second interview with the Atlanta Falcons. So maybe that's where Belichick ends up. But as far as the Patriots and Gerard Mayo, what do you guys think of that hiring and what it can do for them?
I think it's solid, but I can respect that they hired Gerard Mayo because he's been with the Patriots for a long time. He was a solid linebacker for them,
Yep.
and I just really respect how organizations like promote within because a lot of
Yep.
companies don't do that. You know what I'm saying? So I can respect that, but then again, you got to look at the facts. Like he's a defensive sided player, and the Patriots have the most problems on the offensive side of the ball. So I'm just interested to see how their offense formulates with him. You know, is he calling plays? Is he gonna? I heard Bill O'Brien might slide over, or Josh McDaniels. You know, he's a locker room killer too.
I hate that
Um,
guy.
so like we're gonna see how that's gonna play out because I really don't know if their offensive side of the ball is gonna be figured out because they still have holes at receiver, and then they still want to know what they want to do with their quarterback situation, and then you just want to see how the schematics go with a defensive calling coach because um, I personally like a young minded coach with a young quarterback. I don't really see a defensive coordinator or a defensive head coach mentoring and developing a young quarterback. Like they might get Drake May or Jaden Daniels, and I don't
D'Amico
see.
Ryan, CJ Stroud.
Yep, you know what I'm saying. I mean, yeah, that's like you're right, but at the same time, that's like an anomaly. I feel like that's
Yeah.
kind of rare to have. I feel like, and they also had a lot of things going for him. He came from a really nice organization, so
Yeah.
he kind of picked up on Kyle Shanahan and how he runs his offense. But yeah, just like seeing that, like I just want to see what they do on offense. To be honest, who they hire for offensive coordinator because Gerard Mayo, he probably had that defense on locks, but offensively, I still have questions. So
Yeah, I think you do have a pretty good like hesitance, like That's an issue. I think that's something you got to look into. But I do love the conviction at which he was talking about drafting a quarterback with that first pick, with that high pick in the first round. I think
Did he say that?
he essentially said it. He blatantly said it. He said something about like we'd pick the best player available at the best position. If you know what that means. And he kind of giggled like that's he's taking a quarterback. Ultimately, that's interesting to see. But it's I think it's respectable in the sense of if you're a brand new head coach, there's not anything, no matter offensive, defensive, the best thing you can do for yourself is draft a good quarterback, like a high end, talent, and they can go ahead and do that and see what they have with their offensive pieces. They have a couple of receivers that I know they would like to see paired up with a quarterback who can make those throws. I do have concerns about that long-term development of the quarterback with the defensive-minded coach. But ultimately, like I'm really, really eager to see how that Patriot way, that culture that he was bred under, but also how does he bring his own twist into the locker room and into the scheme, into the film room to see how he can better change up that system and that culture that they've had for so long. So that's the number one thing I'm eager to see play out in the next year. But if they do draft a Drake May, I think that could work out really nice for them. If they're able to land McDaniels, I just don't believe that. I don't have much faith in him developing a guy like McDaniels, where he's definitely like out of pocket and he has accuracy, strong suits, but like developing a run first quarterback, I think is a little tough, and it takes some good offensive scheme. So we'll see what they can do. But my number one, I think my question to you guys is like, do you guys think you can like get a quarterback up and going and like maintain the defensive standard that he's also, that the Patriots obviously have on the defensive side they have talent on the defensive side already.
Let's take this, Markos.
All right. Personally, I mean, they were an above average defense this year, so I think the defense is going to continue. As long as they stay, above average, top 15, maybe get to top 10 this year with depending on the changes what they do there. Offensively, I mean, it's complete opposite, worst offense in the league, I think. So it's really important that they hit on the offensive coordinator. And I'll go back to the Texans example. Like the Texans offensive coordinator, I think he was from the Shanahan tree. And you know that graphic with the 2013 Commanders coaching staff or Redskins coaching staff, and he was on that coaching staff, but he was on the defensive side. So that kind of allowed him to see the defensive side of the ball and then transition over when he got with Shanahan in San Francisco to see the offensive side. Then he goes with D'Amico Ryans to Houston, and obviously a very good pairing right there with CJ Stroud. So he's a hot candidate right now to leave. So really, not saying that he's going to go to the Patriots or anything like that, but you just got to really find the offensive coordinator that's going to change, the dynamic of the offense, and that means, in my opinion, Bill O'Brien shouldn't be the one to come in. I think you got to look at around the league at some of these available options and really hit on that coordinator spot. Because the offense really needs to make changes, and I don't think Gerard Mayo, besides the mentorship aspect of it, I don't think he's going to be able to influence much on that side of the ball. Defensively, though, I think he just brings a new energy, and I feel like they needed that with some of the things you've been hearing about the culture as of late with the Patriots and Belichick and Kraft. So, yeah, that's just my thoughts on it.
You're spot on with the offensive coordinator move. They got to nail that pick.
I was gonna say Marcos took the words right out of my mouth. I was gonna say it really just depends on the coordinator and who they hire. I've seen a few things that they were looking at, which was what I alluded to earlier, which is Bill O'Brien, Josh McDaniels, the Rams passing coordinator. It's not offensive coordinator, but passing coordinator, and like a few other guys. So I'm really keen to see what goes down over there.
Mhm. Yeah,
Hmm.
Kraft does have to take somewhat of a step back, but I think he still is, involved. But we'll see how much he gives, complete reign to Mayo.
Who do they get though? Who do you guys think they get? I think they get Drake May.
Yeah, I think it's between May and Daniels. I don't know if May will be there at number three, but he might be.
Yeah. I'm gonna say I really would want them to go like at least take it seriously to potentially go for Marvin Harrison Jr., but I don't see that happening with the Patriots. He'd really bolster that receiving unit because their receivers are really lacking. But like I said earlier, it's a good receiving class, so they could hopefully find somebody later in the rounds. Like I said, with the Texans example again, as they did last year, getting Stroud first round, then later rounds get Tank Dell, potentially find a combo with your rookie quarterback and receiver. But personally, yeah, just go Daniels. Uh, I think it'd work out. He's obviously, I mean, he seems like a mature guy just considering what I saw, with his Heisman speech and everything. Like, just seems like he'd fit that organization, that mold. But like I said, they need to change it up a little bit. Mac Jones doesn't deserve all the blame, but definitely deserves some of the blame with just how he's kind of just performed just since his rookie year, and then you see some of the things that he's been critiqued on, like his antics or whatever. Like I think they just need a different sort of energy around that team, different quarterback. So I'd take Jaden Daniels, and then fill out the defense or fill out the offense and the defense throughout the draft because
Yeah.
that's what's going to really change the trajectory of the organization moving forward. Right now, it's just keep bringing in veterans. You're not going to really be too set up for success.
Yeah, I think a big piece that I think is under the radar is they do have two really good cornerbacks. Gonzalez was injured this year. I think it was
Oh
a
yeah,
ACL there. He having him, and he was actually a guy that the Vikings could have grabbed. Speaking of,
yeah.
instead of Addison, he was there. But ultimately, the Patriots signed him, picked him up, and I think that's a great pickup. They're going to get him back next year. He's kind of a really, really lengthy, good instincts cornerback. So they do have young talent on that side of the ball that they can build upon. I think for me, like the big thing is when you hit on and you know what actually could put a big wrinkle in this, is Jaden McDaniels, I mean, Jalen Daniels could get a huge boost in his stock if Lamar Jackson ends up winning this Super Bowl. Because we've seen time and time again, it's a copycat league. If a running quarterback like Lamar wins the Super Bowl, every single team is going to want a guy like that. And McDaniels could go as high as 3. So ultimately, I think that's the pick for them. I think May would be the best pick for them, but I don't think he'll fall that low, but he could fall that low if Lamar wins the championship and somebody reaches for him above them.
I like Daniels though because he's not just he has a running ability, but he's like accurate, like I said, so he can make a lot of the throws that um, Lamar Jackson was kind of critiqued on earlier in his career that he wasn't able to make.
Yeah.
So I think he comes into that organization, and I feel like he'll just change the way their offense looks. He's not as much of like a question mark, I would say, as a quarterback as Mac Jones was when they brought him in. I feel like he's a little bit more established, even though Mac Jones was coming in, had a good career at Alabama. But you're talking about Jaden Daniels, who won a Heisman, had a really good college career at ASU and LSU. So I feel like he's ready, at this point to come into a situation and perhaps have a similar impact to CJ Stroud, even though that's, pretty hard to do. I think he can do it for sure if the right pieces are around him and the culture is right.
So when you say Marvin Jones, I mean
Marvin
Marvin,
Harrison.
yeah, you're talking about not grabbing a quarterback and sticking with Jones.
He's talking about grabbing a quarterback later and like pairing them together.
Oh, okay.
Or vice versa, yeah.
Okay, I see. I see.
Because
I don't
I
think
mean,
Jones.
JJ McCarthy, you got guys like Bo Nix, Penix,
Maybe.
think that's really like the bulk of it. Like you got some guys that you could even get later in the draft, but most teams don't really draft receivers top 3. It's pretty unheard of. As of recently, I'm not sure. Maybe even going like maybe Julio Jones was top 3. I'm not sure, or AJ Green. It might have been a minute, but it's been a while. Jamar Chase was 5th, so these receivers are going to be falling, and there's plenty of receivers to pick up. So I think just given their lack of receiving talent right now, you gotta for sure get a receiver and a young one too that kind of grow into that offense because they continue to really just draft the wrong players. Like they've missed on some draft picks for a while now. So got to make sure they're hitting on those picks. And I'm not sure like who their GM is right now, because Belichick was in charge of those decisions, I believe. So whoever comes in, got to make sure that they hit on those draft picks. Otherwise, continuing like this cycle, no matter who the head coach is, which ultimately doesn't set up Gerard Mayo for success.
Yeah. And what pick does Atlanta have? Do you know? Is it 5 or 6?
Ooh, I'm not gonna lie, I do not know off the top of my head, but they were in the
Okay.
playoff race, so I don't think they're that high.
Really? I thought they were higher than the Vikings on how they finished because they last 2 games, they lost the last 2 games to,
I think they
but
have the pick. They have the eighth pick.
eighth pick, okay. And what
Okay.
I do like about that position for Belichick is I do think they have pieces on defense that are really nice. And then if they could just get a quarterback with the eighth pick, I don't know who will be there. There's so many quarterback seeking teams in the top like 6. So it's gonna be hard, but if they could get a quarterback, I think Atlanta's in a great situation and win 10 plus games next year.
Yeah, man, we,
With
we got to see Belichick sign with the Falcons first.
with Belichick, you're right. You're right.
Yeah, got to see
Oh,
that get done. But another guy I think Nahum mentioned was Joe Alt. Hey, man, I think he's from Minnesota too, so shout out to him. But uh, potentially another guy the Patriots might look at too, because they do have a history of going for linemen. So I think that'd be pretty high to go top three, but we've seen linemen go top three before plenty of times, so it could be something they look at too. But definitely got to make sure they get these decisions right in the offseason, and we'll see what happens from there. But I could see Gerard Mayo being a potentially good fit if he's set up for success, as I said. And as far as Mac Jones, it's going to be a tricky situation with him because he's got the 5th year option pending. Whether they pick that up or not. So, we saw what how that kind of affected Daniel Jones, right? Comes into the next season and balls out. So we'll see if Mac Jones, comes into the season if he's given the opportunity to play and just balls out. But he was benched this season, so it's not looking good for him. But I think regardless, they gotta make the necessary decisions, and that potentially could be a new quarterback, which I think would be the right decision. Just given the other guys didn't really give you any reason to like think like they could be in the fold. So it's really Mac Jones and whoever they draft. But yeah, that's all I got on this segment. Anything else?
think you got to go for a quarterback when you're top 3, frankly, nowadays. You got to shoot your
Hmm.
shot. How often are you in that top 3 position, you know?
Yeah, they took Mac Jones at like 15. So even then, well, I was just like, I mean, it's before then. It's been a while since the Patriots really took a quarterback, but I think, yeah, they just got to change their ways a little bit. You're at this position, you had a pretty bad year. You got to capitalize on it with the draft pick you're given. I think Jaden Daniels is the right selection, but as I said too earlier, I hope they don't take him, or I hope they can work something out with Minnesota, give us that pick, and then I'd be willing if I'm the Vikings to give up next 2 first round picks for a guy like that. I think he's really like a game changing type of quarterback. But I also feel like what we have over them right now is we have the organization advantage where we have the culture that he can come in and really affect things right away because they don't have the weapons that we have and they don't have the culture established just yet that we've got. But yeah, hopefully Gerard Mayo is a success in New England. But I think it's time we can move on to the divisional round previews. First game up, we got the Texans at Ravens on Saturday. What you guys expect to happen in that game?
I think it's gonna be a nice, it's gonna be a good game. I think I've seen Noah Brown get injured, and they're already depleted at receiver. I think it's just their leading receiver now is like Nico Collins or something like that. So I mean, the Ravens have one of the best defenses. They have good cornerbacks. They can pressure the quarterback. I just want to see what CJ Stroud has in the tank for this game. I want to see him impress me. I think he can. But I honestly think that the Ravens are, they're gonna win this game. I really like their offensive coordinator. I like the flow of the offense. I heard Mark Andrews is coming back. Don't
Mhm.
know if he is or not, but I think he is. And so that two tight end set's gonna be looking nice, even with like the run dynamics with Isaiah Likely and Mark Andrews, and then you can run the ball or block or throw the ball. Like the RPOs are gonna be going crazy in that game. I think
Yeah.
Lamar will have a solid game. They have a lot of film on the Texans now. and they've had a week off. So I think the Ravens are gonna handle them pretty soundly. I think the score would probably be like I'll probably give the Ravens like 27 to like 23. I think they'll beat them, but the score will look a little closer than what it is.
Mm.
First of all, I don't like the way you were talking about Nico Collins. You got to put some respect on his name. He's a
I mean,
legit.
it's just one receiver though.
I do get it. That's fair. That's a fair critique. But you said like Nico Collins, like it was like some
Because they
like
had Tank Dell and Noah Brown, so like that's a nice, really nice trio. But if it's just Nico Collins, then it's just Nico Collins.
okay, I see where okay, if that's the point of view you're coming from, I'm not gonna give you too much flack. Ultimately I do really like Nico Collins after a performance like last week. I think he's like a legitimate wide receiver in this league. And like he's not just like a fringe wide receiver. He's actually like a caliber one, like maybe 1.5 quarterback, maybe I mean wide receiver, maybe a second tier wide receiver, like a wide receiver two on your team, but like he has like one up number one wide receiver potential and just really respect what he was able to do last week. So shout out to him last week. But ultimately, actually, like what I think about CJ Stroud, like I hate to compare guys, but like if you want to compare his performance compared to Jordan's Love performance last week, I'd be more scared if I was the 49ers going up against Jordan Love than the Ravens going up against CJ Stroud. And that's not like I don't want it to be too indicting indicative of where they are right of like their talent or like their potential going forward. It's more indicative of where they are right now. I think Jordan Love just having like a couple years sitting behind Aaron Rodgers and getting to be in the NFL for those amount of years and getting those reps with the B team and just being in that film study. I think that's given him like the technique and like a little bit, just a tad bit more. And I think that's what's going to be lacking in this game against the Ravens from CJ Stroud is even if you look at all the throws that he made last week, he did his numbers look a lot better maybe not a lot, but they look better than Jordan Love's. But if you
That's
look at
I'm sorry to tell you this. That's actually not true.
the stats,
Love and CJ Stroud had identical passer ratings, almost identical yards, as off by two, and identical touchdowns, and
wow.
identical 16. They were both 16 for 21. So
Okay. Okay. And so that's actually what I want to highlight is like they had very similar like performances maybe if you look at the stat sheet, but when you look at the actual throws that they were making, CJ Stroud a lot of his all three of his touchdowns were like the air what do you call it? The air yards on his throws were less than 15 yards maybe in combination. So like ultimately like I'm not trying to I love CJ Stroud and I'm not really trying to like
it's more like schemes, not quarterback play, in my opinion.
yeah, and that's fine though. But the scheme is like internal knowledge of what your quarterback's capable of as well, and you're putting your quarterback skill set in mind when you're scheming up your scheme. So like, I'm not trying to say he's like limited, but I do think that his best throw, I think, was the throw that he overthrew. I think that the touch on that ball, like his accuracy, his ability to throw that ball like in the pocket, like I thought that was phenomenal. So ultimately, I have a lot of hope in CJ Stroud and his potential in his year in his career, but I do think against the Ravens stifling defense, who are able to get pressure on the quarterback with just four pass rushers, allowing their cornerbacks and their safeties to sit back on the depleted wide receiver core that they have. I think it's going to be hard for CJ to put buckets up, to put points up. Against the Ravens, and I think the Ravens are going to win this pretty decisively. I think the Ravens are winning this 28-16, actually.
Oh, interesting stuff right there. I mean, I was thinking about this game, and I feel like the Texans, they're a team that's kind of similar to the Packers, where obviously you mentioned Jordan Love and CJ Stroud. I think the similar identity with those two teams right now is like they're fearless teams who almost don't seem like they understand the moment that they're in right now and like the magnitude of these games, and it just seems like they're going into these games kind of like just letting it all out there. And I feel like the Texans they're gonna show that they've learned a lot from their earlier matchup with Baltimore all the way in week 1. So with that being said, I'm gonna take the Texans in this game. One possession game. I like what the Texans did last week. People got to remember who was. Oh, he's surprised. Now people got to remember who who was favored in that Texans Browns game, you know? Like, so Texans are going to come into this game. Uh, I feel like D'Amico Ryans for sure is going to have them ready. They're not going to just lay a stinker out there, even though they might look outmatched right now. I feel like they're just going to come into that game and they're going to have a lot of things going for them. Um, Texans have never been to an AFC championship in their history, so they got a chance to make history with this first year head coach quarterback duo, which I think would be pretty remarkable there. Um, but yeah, I think the Texans can come into this environment and really have an impact. And with the Ravens, I don't know if we're going to see that same sort of effectiveness on both sides of the ball that we saw all season long in this game. Just because I feel like perhaps, week 18 getting rested and then the bye week, I think it could potentially have an impact as it did the last time they were a number one seed. But it seems like there's new energy to this team now, but we said the same thing about the Cowboys and see what happens. So I want to say just my heart is gonna lean towards the Texans, just given what they showed last week. I just think they're a dangerous team to go up against at this point, given how they played. Not only last week too, but they had to win week 18 against Indianapolis to even get to this point of the playoffs. So yeah, I'm gonna say the Texans win this game, one possession. Score though, I'm gonna say 27-23. Go ahead.
So you did the exact opposite from me, by the way. 27-23, I got the Ravens. I really like this take, but the Texans are so depleted on the wide receiver, like just the options, and like the Ravens cornerbacks are actually pretty nice. So it's just like if they weren't depleted and everybody was healthy, I would go with that same take. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, that's a good point.
True,
That's a good.
true. But we saw last week it wasn't just Nico Collins, was it?
You got a
You
point, but
know?
they weren't. I mean, the Browns are a very nice defense, so I can't even.
Yeah. So
So I guess.
no, but I mean the Ravens are the best defense in the league. I think that's a fair title to give them. I think points per game wise, they allow the least. So it's week one, I believe it was like 25-9. But like I said, it's a completely different team coming into this game. So I think both teams have something to prove. It's not like the Ravens are this team that's just, although they're the number one seed, they still have something to prove. They're not a proven team yet in these playoff environments. So I'm interested to see how they respond. But it's not going to be an easy game for them. And I think the Texans are going to give them some troubles. And it's going to come down for me to a turnover potentially. And I think with the way D'Amico Ryans has that defense operating this year, it could potentially go into the Texans' favor. So I'm a lean Texans.
Bold prediction, man. They've been sleeping on my guy Lamar for too long. Too long, man. This is the year.
We'll see.
The-
We'll see. I
yeah.
like I like Lamar Jackson what he's done this year. I think he's the MVP, without a doubt. Um, but
You
hey,
don't,
playoff environments is where it matters.
you don't think he'll get a first playoff dub or second?
Second. How many home playoff wins does he have?
I think he's one on the road.
Beat Titans. So, but I don't want to rely on that stat entirely. My point is really with this is that, as much as the Texans are an unproven team, so are the Ravens. So I think it's kind of an even playing field as much as it doesn't seem like that. Outside looking in, I think the Texans have a lot of things going into their favor going into this game, and I feel like they're going to come ready to play without a doubt. But I'm interested to see how the Texans, explosiveness is affected playing in the outdoors, playing outside of the home environment, because I don't know, last couple of weeks have been indoors games for them, and CJ Stroud has really been able to cook in Indy and in Houston. So going outdoors in this environment, I'm not sure what the weather impact will be, but I want to see if that continues because if that continues, I mean the Texans can have another good offensive performance, which really gives them the advantage. And if Lamar can, I'm not sure what Lamar turnover numbers are this year, but I don't think he's turned the ball over much. If he doesn't turn the ball over, then I think it's a lot tougher. But at the same time, CJ Stroud doesn't turn the ball over much either. He's has like 5 interceptions on the season, so I think it's going to be a head-to-head matchup in this one.
Yeah. I'm not gonna lie. I love CJ and I love what the Texans are doing. D'Amico Ryans. Um, I just can't take them in this one. Just based on like personnel. I think that's the big one for me is personnel.
Yeah.
Offensive end. Yeah.
Yeah, the more we talk about it, the more I'm gonna regret it. So I feel like we should move on now. You know, but shout out to both teams. I mean, good seasons for sure. Next matchup, Packers at 49ers. That Saturday night matchup. These two teams, playoff history, played each other a couple of times recently, but this is Jordan Love, at the helm now, so it's gonna be a little bit different. What do you expect to happen in this game?
You called the wrong upset. All right. This is the upset you should have called right here.
Okay,
For me,
I got
like
I got another one coming too. So
okay, bet. Okay. I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, I'm not 100% confident in this take, but I'm gonna go ahead and just give it. Ultimately, like, this is what I think is gonna happen, and this is one of the likely possibilities. I don't think this is for sure gonna happen, but I think this is in the realm of possibilities, and I'm gonna go ahead and put my heart on the line and say this is what's gonna happen. Ultimately, what I think it could happen is the 49ers love playing zone. And I think I was listening to Bill Simmons make this take as well. So like, or it could have been someone else. I'm not gonna lie, but ultimately, they was just speaking about how much 49ers love to play zone, and the Packers' efficiency when they're playing against the zone is second or third in the league in the regular season. So they have one of the most high caliber offenses playing against the zone, and I think that's what they were able to do with the Cowboys last week. So just be you want to be careful you don't make that same mistake that they did last week. But what I'm actually curious to see is how do the 49ers play when they play without the lead? So if the Packers can go out there kind of like what they did with the Cowboys last week and give them a quick punch or two in the beginning quarters and put 14-0 on their back or 14-3 or something like that, how likely is it that the 49ers crawl their way back out of that? Because now they're going to be giving their hand and running the ball and ultimately, like this is a possibility that I could see playing out. And if they don't give Jordan Love deceiving looks before and after the snap, and they don't make their defensive scheme, if they make it a very like straightforward, I think it's possible. All right, so I think my pick right now, I don't even feel confident. It's crazy. Ultimately, I got the 49ers winning. I mean, I got the Packers winning against the 49ers in an upset. I should damn near put like $50 down on this because what the heck? Like, that's how much I believe in this guy. And I hate to see it, but I just hate the 49ers more. So I got the Packers winning 28. Actually, I'll go 27 to 24.
Thought I heard it, bro. Like, I'm shocked. I mean, Jordan Love, he's a wild card. I feel like nobody really knows what he's gonna do.
Yeah,
But they're not gonna be able to get that punch that they did the Cowboys to the 49ers. That's your problem. That's your problem right there.
that's
Because
true.
you know what the 49ers are gonna do? They're gonna do what they did all season. You know what that is?
You're
yeah,
such an idiot, bro. Stop glazing. Oh my God.
They're running the ball, running it down the throats of the Packers. And I can say this because I watched the Packers versus Giants. I don't know if you did; it was on prime time, but I watched Saquon carve them up, and I watched Tommy DeVito run for like 80 yards. So it's like their run defense has holes in it. The Cowboys can't run the ball.
I agree. I
Okay,
agree.
you had this offensive line with the best the best running back in the league. He was considered an MVP favorite. Like to that, you know what I'm saying, to that extent, and you watch him run the ball, he's gonna be running all over the Packers. They're gonna be taking up time of possession. They're gonna be taking up the play actions are just gonna be going crazy.
Yeah.
And they were already scouting the Packers right when they was like 27-0. That's what Kyle Shanahan said. So I mean, I think that was an L take. I'm not gonna lie. That was a really L take on you.
Frankly,
Um,
yeah, that was the easy thing to say is come out and say what you just said.
Of course, of
That's
course.
the
But
easy thing to say.
I mean,
I'm not
there's
gonna
other
lie.
upsets out here on this wild card weekend.
I
right?
want
You picked the wrong one.
I want this one. This is the one that nobody sees coming, but this is the one where if Jordan Love goes out there, they get the ball first and they put 7-0 on the 49ers, and the 49ers can't score on their first drive, be careful. That's all I'm saying. That's
Yeah,
it.
I don't really see the 49ers play down from a lead either because they don't put themselves in that position. But I mean, they don't really look that good when they're coming, like when they're down.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see it, but at the same time, I'll take Yossef. Like, come on, man.
You know
Like,
what, bro? Just
like
know, just know I
there's
want
other
you on the
matchups that
pod
look
in the
better.
draft. Hey, just know I want you on the pod next week, all right?
Hey, I'm just saying, man, because you're not gonna want me if these guys win. That's all I'm gonna say. It's so obvious. McCaffrey all day. Come on, man.
Let's get that nasty jersey out of here. Man.
Uh, honestly, I think this is what I think is gonna happen. I think it's gonna start out close early, shootout type game back to back. I think both teams are gonna score early. Both teams score on their first drive, but the only way the Packers have a chance of winning this game, I feel like, is doing what they did to Dallas. Like same thing, creating a turnover and capitalizing off the turnover. That's really the only way I can see the 49ers kind of go on their heels a little bit and panic a little bit. And, that's really how I've seen them struggle this year is when Brock Purdy's, turning the ball over. But it doesn't happen too often. So what I'm going to say is it's going to start out like, 14-14. It's going to be close for a little bit, but I feel like the 49ers will convincingly win this game and pull out ahead. And yeah, I do think Christian McCaffrey's the X factor. I think Debo Samuel, there's just so many guys out there that's going to cause problems for Dallas that, as we said earlier, Dallas just didn't have. So Green Bay is not going to be able to cope with much of that. Their defense is good; it's getting better, but the personnel wise, I don't think it's going to be able to handle much of what San Fran can throw at them with their offensive scheme and everything that they can do. It's going to be really tough, but um, I also look at the matchup. Aaron Jones versus Christian McCaffrey. I feel like those two can make a difference in this game for either team. And if Aaron Jones is effective in this game, then I think the Packers have a chance. But that's a if, considering how he's played all year. It's really just hit or miss sometimes. But of late, he's been playing well. But Christian McCaffrey's been doing this all season. MVP candidate. So I'm gonna say the 49ers win convincingly. I think they're gonna pull away second half. Uh, my score prediction is two score game 31-17. Yeah, I just don't think the Packers have enough. They're a young team, impressive run, but I think it ends here.
Yeah. Frankly, I do think that their defense is just kind of outmatched personnel wise with Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey, of course. But ultimately,
Yeah.
like I am banking on that situation happening, like I said, like similar to the 49ers, I mean to the Cowboys, where they elect to get the ball first, they score, the Cowboys can't score, they score again. And now all of a sudden the 49ers have to, Brock Purdy has to drop back in that pocket 40 times a game. That's what I would want to see. What I want to see if I'm
Mhm.
playing against the Niners. And ultimately, their offensive line is not as good as we might think it is. Like I think Trent Williams is probably the only guy you have to worry about, and even him, like send to Adam and kind of mitigate that, and that's about it. So we'll see how it goes. But ultimately, like I kind of do agree with what you guys are saying. But I wanted to come out here and give a bold prediction, and I do think that there's a possibility for this to happen, and I think it would just be so amazing if this did. So go ahead.
I think
Yeah.
That Texans CJ Stroud has more of an upset than Jordan Love does. Just saying.
I
But
actually disagree. I literally just made my case for why I
I
disagree.
could make my case too. We could be here all day. That's the problem though. You know
I
what I'm
mean,
saying?
if we look at the tape from last week and this week, who made the better passes, Jordan Love or CJ Stroud?
I just told you they had identical stats, but
I didn't say stats. I said passes.
I'm just saying they had the same passer rating. They had the
Okay,
same amount of yards.
I,
Throws is cool, but like
stats are equal. What do? You use your eyes and look at how they.
I might think Jordan Love was more impressive. You know what I'm saying? It's all about opinion at that point, right?
No, it's not. You literally watch and see who made the harder throws, who had the less leverage, who had the easy. That's what making eye observations is about
Yeah,
pretty
I
much.
personally think Jordan Love was a little bit more impressive than CJ Stroud at
I
throwing the
agree.
ball.
I agree with you. That's exactly what my takeaway is too.
Right.
That's why I
Sounds
think
good.
Jordan Love has more chance to upset the number one seed.
Okay.
Damn. So
I don't really
Jordan Jordan Love threw 16 times last week and they won like that. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, same with CJ too.
I think yeah, the surrounding cast really has to play a part in this game for the Packers though. It's not going to be fully Jordan Love even though it might look like he has to like take on that hero role. They've got to get contributions from all their guys. I mean, I think Jaden Reed had a quiet game last week, right? It was just Romeo Dobbs and like Wicks and guys like that, if I'm
The
not
think
Packers
mistaken.
already the
he had
Packers
three.
already talking shit. They were basically saying their defensive tackle was saying how if we get pressure on Brock Purdy, he's going to be throwing picks.
I
But
agree.
that's actually not the case because he's 15. He has 15 touchdowns, 3 picks against the blitz this season. So
Ultimately, watch what happens when they're down. That's the issue. Like when they're leading, they're just going to continue to give it to McCaffrey, and that's going to mitigate the
you're right.
pass.
That Ravens game did open my eyes just a little bit.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, if you're winning, you can just give the ball to McCaffrey, and that mitigates the pass rush so much that it's like, you know what I'm saying? They can do so much with that play action that it's just like they will win if they're up by 2 scores early. That's wraps.
For
And I
sure.
do think if they're close as well, they'll take away, Marco said. But there's that chance if you fall behind 10-0, you start having to throw the ball. All of a sudden, interceptions can play a part.
Hmm. Like the Vikings game also, and then their earlier 3-game losing streak for the 49ers. I mean, there's ways to pick apart the 49ers defense for sure. I think it's dropped off just a bit from D'Amico Ryans to Steve Wilkes. So I think there's ways to attack it. Jordan Love for sure can be a guy that can attack it. I just don't know if that's going to be the game plan one, and if they're going to have a chance to even like have a balanced attack. Because if it's just heavy pass game, and it's already lost at that point, because that means you're down. So you need to make sure that keep it close, remain keep Aaron Jones in the game because that really what makes them. That's really what made them. These past few weeks really find this identity that they're building. So if it's just entirely Jordan Love and he has to throw like 30 times a game, they're not going to win.
Yeah. I
I was,
agree. Aaron Jones is pivotal.
I was going to say
Yeah.
I am actually rooting for the Packers, even though I know the 49ers are going to win. But I'm really interested to see this head coaching battle between LaFleur and Shanahan because, I
Yep.
mean, they've been going at it. You know what I'm saying? I think that's like his I think he trained with Shanahan, and I mean he had Rodgers against the 49ers for a few playoff games, and they've always fell short. So I actually want to see if you know I want to see what happens. You know what I'm saying? Can the youngest team knock off this big favorite? You know what I'm saying with Jordan Love at the helm because Rodgers can get the job done. So
Yep, exactly. I think this is a big F Rogers game, and I'm here for it. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. And I hate the Packers, so it hurt me watching the Packers do what they did against the Cowboys last week. But at this point, I'm riding the wave.
I mean, I don't mind it honestly because we got two NFC North teams remaining out of the last four, so I'll take
Represent.
it. Yeah,
Yes,
I'll
sir.
take it.
I'll
NFC
take that.
East,
Hey, I
NFC
just
East
want to
out of
talk.
here.
Hey, NFC East. He's talking about we got the hardest
I
division.
would be sick to my stomach if the Eagles or Cowboys won a Super Bowl. I would
I,
be sick to
I
my
mean,
stomach.
obviously, I don't want them to win a Super Bowl. Chill
I
out,
don't want them.
dog.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
saying they're getting closer.
But I'm just saying, it's a lot of talk from you, especially talking about your division, sweet ass division, the Giants are your division. Yeah, so much for all that, bro.
Honestly, each year is different. To be honest with you, Joseph, you guys looked like a clown show a few years ago. So, I mean, it is what it is.
I also picked the. Oh, I actually got that one wrong. So I'll just.
All right, all right. Let's move forward. Another NFC North team here. Bucks at Lions Sunday afternoon. What do you guys have for that one?
Not gonna lie to you, my roommate, he's a big Lions fan. I don't know why. He's not even from Detroit, and we've been going back and forth. I personally think the Buccaneers is going to win this game because the game plan is simple, right? You hold them to about 20 points, and they're like 1 in 10 or something like that, and that's easier said than done. But I think the Buccaneers have the personnel to play that type of game with the Lions. I think their defense can shut down the Lions, and I don't think the Lions can shut down Baker. That's a crazy statement, but I mean the Lions defense is not that good. They have Aiden Hutchinson, and then their pass defense is just super trash. So I could see them stopping the run against the Lions because the Lions, the only way they can actually score points is if they get that run game going because that's going to insert the play action, and once the play action's going, then all hell breaks loose. Like I've watched so many Lions games where that happens. And so if they commit to stopping the run, Gibbs and Montgomery, I think the Buccaneers get a solid chance of winning this game because I don't see the pass defense stepping up. And I think Mike Evans on the outside, Chris Godwin, and then you have Kate Iron and you have Rashad White. Like, yeah, I think it can go anybody's game because I can't count out the Lions because they actually have X factors like St. Brown and Gibbs and stuff like that. But I think the game plan is simple to stop the Lions. You just got to be able to score points and then hold them to the best you can. And I think they have the players to do that. So I'll probably go. I'll probably go. I'll probably go. Buccaneers 28. Lions 17.
Wow.
Damn.
Okay. I do see where you're coming from. I'm not gonna lie. The matchup is kind of favoring the Buccaneers just very slightly, and I think there's room for a conversation on that front. But ultimately, what I do think about is both teams are coming off of a victory that maybe was I don't want to say unexpected, but just more so like just an emotional win. The Lions, of course, doing it for the first time in 30 years, and then the guy who's been slept on with Baker. So ultimately, I'm thinking about which group of guys can bounce back from that emotional W and be locked in for this game more. I like my inclination leans towards Baker and kind of that staff, but ultimately, I think the Lions have overwhelming talent. Like you mentioned, if they get that run game going with Montgomery specifically, it allows Jahmyr Gibbs to get in, and Jahmyr Gibbs is that change up speed, and if he's in the game and after Montgomery's already running well, it makes it really tough on defenses because you don't know whether they're going to run or whether they're going to pass or if they're going to do like, trickery plays. And that gives a lot of advantages on the offensive side, getting the ball going. So ultimately, I do like Dan Campbell and his ability to scheme up something nice for this one. So I have the Lions going in and actually winning this one, or the Buccaneers coming into their home and taking the L, I should say. And ultimately, what I do think the difference is going to be is the run game. I don't think Rashad White's going to be able to run all over the Lions defense as you think it will be, because that is the key to engaging the Bucks offense as well, is making sure Rashad White is getting going. And if they're quickly down points, it's going to be hard for the Buccaneers to engage their running game, and it's going to put a lot of pressure on Baker to make 28 to 35 throws. And if they're in that situation, I think it spells bad for Baker.
I
So
just want to.
yeah, let me just give my score prediction. I have the Lions winning this 32-16, actually. Big blowout, opposite direction.
I just want to say, can we both agree? Can everybody here agree that defense wins championships?
Sure.
Maybe, kind of. Yeah.
Mhm.
Patrick Mahomes won
Yeah.
it with
My experience, I mean, they still had a nice defense. In my experience, defense wins championships. And I'm looking at the guys on the defense for the Buccaneers, and guess what? They won a ring like 2 years ago, and they've all done this before. They all know what to do, and they like you have Antoine Winfield Jr., you have Levante David, like they've all won a ring with Brady, so they know what to expect. They're all veteran guys. I would trust them as much as the Ravens on defense in the playoffs right now, just because of their veteran defense. They've won a ring like 2 years ago,
Yeah.
and people are sleeping on them. People are selling their chips on the Buccaneers. I think their strong suit is the defense because of how like their cornerbacks are in sync. Like you have strong positions everywhere, and they're like more talented than the Lions on defense, and it's
I
not
do,
even not
yeah,
even
I
close.
do think the Buccaneers have that maturity advantage against the
You want to
Lions.
run with that defense is basically what I'm trying to say.
That you're talking like experience-wise, just playoff experience in general. Just like you've been there and they understand what that
They
like.
had 4 games of playing in the playoffs, and they proved that they could do it every time.
I see what you're saying. I think there is a viable option for them to take that route and defensively just muffle them guys. But ultimately, I think what you're really sleeping on is the offensive like ceiling of the Lions. Like their upside is like overwhelming talent at times, and if their defense can handle that, like I'm not quite sure, but we'll see. Because Jared Goff has the utmost confidence in his from his head coach, and that level of confidence just has him throwing that ball with a little extra more sauce and just a little bit more confidence in himself goes a long way.
I was gonna say the X factor in this game is fourth downs. How aggressive is Dan Campbell, and
Always. You know how
what is the conversion rate? You
he's
know,
gonna Conversion rate is an interesting question, but he will go for that fourth down for
You
sure.
know what I'm saying? But I mean, like he will go for it, but like if it's 4th and 10, are you really gonna go for it? You're gonna punt it, right? Most coaches, he's gonna punt it too. But like, I just want to see like those 4th and 5s, 4th and 6, those medium ones where it's like questionable to go for it. Like, are you 4 for 4 on those? Are you know what I'm saying? That's gonna really tell us a lot about who wins this game. And I think the Buccaneers are experienced enough to stop them on those key plays.
Not a bad take. What's the line? What do you think, Marcos? I'll look up the line.
Yeah, it's a tough one for me. I was thinking about what both teams do well, both teams don't do well. I feel like both quarterbacks struggle when they're hurried. So I think the key is who's going to be the best front seven in this game. Detroit, obviously, that's the strength of their defense is their front seven because, as Nahum mentioned, their secondary gets torched every week. I mean, Nick Mullins throw for like in 2 games, Nick Mullins threw 800 yards on the Lions defense. So I just want to put that out there. So I think the Lions defense has strengths. I don't want to just say they're terrible altogether. I mean, front seven is really good. So if Baker Mayfield gets hurried, I mean, the Lions can definitely, do what they do and get turnovers on quarterbacks. But the same can be said for Jared Goff, who's had games where he is hurried and he doesn't really perform well, Lions game or not Lions game, Ravens game earlier in the season, the Bears game not too long ago. So I just think it's about who gets more pressure. Um, Also, last week, the Lions only won by 1 point, and there were multiple times where the Rams didn't have weren't able to get red zone conversions. They got into the red zone multiple times, but settled. So I think that's a key factor to play in where if the
I think
Rams are, or if the Rams were able to get more explosives as they did, on that one play to Puka Nakua, if they got more of that going, I think the Rams could have, blown this game a little bit more open and potentially pulled away with it. So I'm keying in on like maybe perhaps more explosive plays as it was last week for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers in this one. Trey Palmer, Mike Evans, just something like that can blow the game open a little bit more because when it's more concise and it's just more constricted in the red zone, obviously, that's where I think the front seven plays a big factor, and that's where I think they were able to get their conversions last week for the Rams. This game, though, I think I'll give the Bucks the advantage just because of the experience, and I don't think the Lions are going to have as much in their favor in this game. I mean, last week the protection wasn't an issue. I mean, Aaron Donald obviously is a very good player, but it wasn't like the Rams were getting at Jared Goff much, and he was a very efficient quarterback on the day, the best quarterback on the day, I would say. And offensively, they didn't have any issue, but I think the offense is as good as the pass protection makes it, which is the case for a lot of teams. I just think for this particular week, the defense of the Bucks will have a bigger impact, just given their experience, and I think Todd Bowles is going to have something cooking up. So I just don't think I'm gonna take the Lions in this game. I could see them winning, of course. Just talent overmatching the Bucks. I could completely see that, but I just don't think that's going to be the case. Just feel like the schematics is going to play a big part in this game, and we're going to see a lot of breakdowns, and that's what's going to give the edge for the Bucks, in my opinion.
I was gonna say the only way the Lions win is because of their offensive line because they're
no.
so good.
But their offensive
Okay.
line is elite. Yeah,
Yeah. I would disagree. I think Marcos, you touched on this, but I think you looked at it from a different angle than I would. You looked at how the Lions had or the Rams had a lack of success in the red zone and closer to the end zone, not being able to punch in after like 7, 8, 10 play drives. I think that's actually a benefit to that play to that Lions defense where they were able to come up with multiple stops in those key situations. And their offense, like you said,
it is. Yeah.
Nahum, their passing offense is not great. It's not good. Just to keep it 100%. It's not good, but situationally they're able to rise up and play and get those timely stops. And I think that is indicative of a really good situational football team who's well coached as well. So like ultimately, I'm not confident in Baker being able to make those third down plays as much as I am in Goff being able to make those third down plays. So for me, if we look at the third down conversion rate, and the same thing happens this week where the Lions are able to stop the Buccaneers 3, 4 times in the red zone and make them settle for 3 instead of 7, that could be the game ball, right? That could be the ball game right there.
And also last week, I think the Lions did a really good job on in the run game, Kyron Williams really wasn't much of a factor, I would say, overall. So if they affect the Bucks run game and Baker's gonna have to throw a little bit more than we're used to seeing, then I think that could obviously be a problem. But I just think the explosives are gonna play a part in this game. We're gonna see some explosive for both teams. So that's just what I think is gonna happen. I think when we see it. Oh, we see it more so happening with the what's going on here? Oh,
That was my bad.
you good. But I just think the explosive are going to play a part in this game, and we see it happen a lot to the um the uh the Lions where they get attacked over the top, and that's really a problem of their defense. But front seven wise, if they get pressure there, they win the battle of the trenches. That's really where the Lions can succeed, and that's in the red zone, especially if they get those chances to stop teams in the red zone. I think I give them more of the edge, but I just feel like the experience is going to take the Bucks over the top end. Offensively, they're in a good space right now, and shout out to their coordinator because he's
Yeah,
he's about to get some head coaching looks too.
sure. Might be out of there. Might be going
Yeah,
to Patriots.
yeah. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Bucks. Score? I didn't say a score, did I? I feel like it's gonna be in the 20s, 28-24, another 4 point game.
Lions are
But
21 when they're over 20 though.
What's that?
okay, so the Lions do well in high scoring games, basically.
The line is 6.5 favoring minus 6.5. The Lions.
Makes sense. That's about right.
That's about right.
I think though the Bucks is a harder matchup though for the Lions than the Eagles would have been at this point. Would you guys agree?
Say that one more time.
Do you think the Bucks are a harder matchup than the Eagles would have been for the Lions?
Oh yes, yes. The Eagles' defense is the biggest, like water salivating when it comes to their defense.
Yeah, I think the Lions can optimize and maximize their best talents against the Eagles just because of missed tackles and not hitting the right holes and even pass coverage. So I think yeah, that would be really bad if they played.
Yeah. I like the Bucks' tenacity on defense. Ultimately, that's what gives me a little bit hope for them.
They got a type. Yeah, I was just gonna say like the Bucks. They got a type of swagger to them, and I think it's because of Baker. Like
Right.
they all play for each other. They play for Baker, and they have like nothing to lose type of energy. I think the Lions have more to lose than the Bucks. To be honest with you, to be frank, like there's a good amount of pressure on the Lions. Like 30 years. Like what are you guys gonna do? Is it one game and you guys are done? Like Buccaneers, they just were at the Super Bowl. They just won a ring, so they got all the house money on them. So they gonna be chilling.
Yeah, I agree. I think the emotional and like just intelligence, like I said, I think it favors the Bucks, and then like the Lions are coming just too much hype. Too much hype is never good for a team, especially that hasn't really proven anything in the playoffs.
For sure.
Hmm. Okay, we'll see what happens. Definitely, I don't want to count out the Lions in this game. I mean, there was moments in that last game where I thought the Rams were going to win it, but the Lions just have that resolve, and they've shown it all season. Even that first time they played the Bears, where they were just getting blown out, and they were able to come back. It's obviously a different game, different magnitude, but I just think the Lions just never say never with them. Never count them out. But I'm picking
I
the
think
Bucks.
I think like we said, like how the Buccaneers have that swagger based on Baker, the Lions have that swagger based on Dan Campbell, and like
Yeah,
that's really, really nice to have. And ultimately, if the Bucks can't put them away, the looming threat of their offense is always there, in my opinion.
right, right. And then lastly, Kansas City Chiefs on the road to play the Bills. Not too many times the Chiefs going on the road in the playoffs. So, what do you guys see happening in this game?
I think this is the first time Patrick Mahomes has ever been on the road outside of a Super Bowl.
Yeah.
Um, Ultimately, this is going to be an interesting conversation. It's going to be cold. It was cold in Kansas City. Ultimately, these guys aren't scared of the cold, unlike Miami. Buffalo Bills offense is used to being in the cold. And unlike last year, I think my biggest critique about the Bills last year was their inability to surround Josh Allen with running talent. And this year they've done that, not just with the James Cook upgrade, but also with a couple other bigger guys in the rotation, and that's really helped them give defenses different looks. Ultimately, man, This is a really hard game to pick. This is probably my hardest game to pick for me. I personally have a personal bias towards Josh Allen, and I want to see him succeed, and I want him to get over this Kansas City barrier. Then again, on that same fold, it's really hard for me to count out Patrick Mahomes after what he showed me last week. And no matter how bad he played in the regular season, his ability to step up and make those key timely throws is not something that I've ever seen him miss in the playoffs, outside of maybe that championship game against the Buccaneers. And it's just time and time again, Patrick Mahomes comes up big in the biggest moments. But ultimately, I think this is the year. This is the year that Josh Allen rides the momentum that they've gotten in the last couple of weeks. They completely dominated the Steelers and showed why they're the AFC, second best team in the AFC, or favored second best team with the highest odds to make it out of the AFC. And ultimately, I think this is Josh Allen's best opportunity to get a lick, but this is going to be a big test on whether his composure will be able to win out against this great Kansas City off defense. If he throws two interceptions, that's ball game. So ultimately, I'm going to trust in Josh Allen to make the right throws and use his feet and to really damage, that pass rush of the Chiefs. And I see a tight game. I don't think it's going to be a crazy blowout game. I think it's going to be in the 20s, one possession game. I'll have the Bills winning a 4-point matchup, 27-23.
You was breaking this down so beautifully, and the way you broke this down really just gave me confidence in saying the Chiefs. Just because you remind me of Josh Allen and how much turnovers he had like throughout the season. And yeah, it's gotten better because they fired Ken Dorsey, but I also think that the scary defense is Kansas City. I think people are sleeping on the defense of Kansas City because Mahomes is there, but their defense is playing solid and they're flying. And I think you got to go with the quarterback that makes the smartest decisions on the field, and that's Mahomes. Even though they're very inefficient and they don't have that much really solid receivers other than Rashee Rice, you know what I'm saying? But it is Mahomes, and Mahomes. I think there's more on the line and at stake for the Bills than they are the Chiefs, because the Chiefs, they can chalk this up if they lose. They can chalk this up to, hey, we didn't have enough offensive talent. But if the Bills lose, it's like, what do we do now? You know what I'm saying? Head coaches are getting fired. Stephon Diggs is going to throw another temper tantrum. Um, like, you don't really have a solid not wide receiver two. I don't think Gabe Davis is a wide receiver two. We can all agree. And then they have like some other receivers that I don't really pay too much attention to. They have a nice tight end pairing, but I mean, if the Bills lose, then it's like, if you guys can't get over Kansas City now, what makes you think you'll ever get over them? This is the year to do it. And I think that's just too much. I think that's just too much. And I think it's just too much for Sean McDermott. He's not an offensive head coach, and he's a defensive head coach, but the Bills defense hasn't been looking that good all year. So, I mean, I got to go with the GOAT, Andy Reid, at the end of the day. He's going to cook some plays up, and he probably knew that they were facing the Bills. So, he's going to pull some little tricks out of the book, and they're gonna snag this W. It's going to be a low scoring game though, and I got the Chiefs winning 23 to 20. I think the Chiefs will walk out with a last second field goal, and then the Bills' demise happens. So yeah,
You definitely see that happening.
Yeah, for me, I'm gonna take the Bills in overtime. Uh, you know, I like the Chiefs, but on the road this year, they don't really have any notable wins that I've seen. And, Bills have obviously not only this year, but in the past beaten them in the regular season, but in the playoffs haven't been able to get it done. So I think they're going to have that in mind in this game. And, as good of a head coach as Andy Reid is, as good of a operator of the offense Mahomes is, Kelsey, same thing, and Rashee Rice, how he played last week. I just feel like the Bills have a lot going for them offensively that they can cause problems to a Chiefs defense who has really been productive this year. But with the offense of the Chiefs, I think that's where you're going to see some inefficiencies, and I think that's their problems all year is going to come back to bite them in this game, even though it didn't last week. I feel like they had the advantage over Miami, and as we saw in the game with just handling the elements of the game. This week, I just feel like the offense of Buffalo will be on point. I don't think the turnovers are going to be an issue, and the home crowd is obviously going to be effective in this one. And Mahomes, that's something new for him to deal with in this environment, and their young receivers and Kelsey, who hasn't been great. He had drops last week. Got to come into play in this game. I just don't know if that's going to be enough. So on both sides of the ball, I want to give the edge to Buffalo, even though I see more self-inflicted wounds on Casey's offense affecting them rather than the Bucks, or rather than the Bills' defense affecting Kansas City's offense. So I just feel more like confident that the Bills will be able to get it done. And yeah, I just feel like also it's going to be something that they can look at and be like, yeah, in the past we haven't been able to get over this hump, past couple seasons, not only just getting to the back to the AFC Championship, but being able to, you know, um, knock out Mahomes. So it's knocking out two birds in one stone is a saying, which I think they can do in this game. So I just want to I just want to see a good game, but I feel like the Bucks or the Bills have it in OT.
Yeah. I think one thing that we're underrating a little bit, and I think you touched on this a little bit, is all of the transgressions that have happened for the Chiefs offense. I think were easy to wipe under the rug after last week's performance against the top Miami team, whose offense wasn't going relative to the Chiefs or relative to what their expectations were, but even more like blatant when you see how decently the Chiefs were able to operate in that same environment. With that being said, I think people are kind of glamorizing what the Chiefs' offense is this year, just based off that one playoff game last week against a Miami team that is depleted on defense, but outplayed their defense, outplayed their offense. Ultimately, I think what we're going to see for the first time in Mahomes' career, where he's going to throw multiple interceptions in a playoff game, and it's going to be what's going to be ultimately what's going to close the book for me. I think I had them winning in by 4 points, the Bills. I think what's going to happen is something similar to a fourth quarter. It's going to be close going into the fourth quarter. Buffalo Bills are going to march down the field, score a slow, methodic touchdown, and then from there, the Chiefs are going to have a hard time scoring a touchdown, and that's where I think Mahomes is going to be forced to make a throw that he doesn't want to make, and it's going to be intercepted, and that's how I see the game ending. So ultimately, I do see. Even with all the interception woes that Josh Allen has shown us this year, I think it's going to be Patrick Mahomes that throws the game-sealing interception.
Hmm. Interesting. I mean, I could definitely be wrong on my assessment of this game, just because they could have just, found a spark and continue riding with it if you're the Chiefs. But I don't know. The way the Bills have responded this season after how they started the season, I just want to give them the edge here. Uh, in a close one, though, I think overtime is where they're going to get it done. And I know Josh Allen he might not even have a win in overtime in his career. I think it was like 0-4, 0-5. I think the stat was, and that started with the game against KC, right, in his second or third year. I just think he's going to get it done in this game, and I don't think he's going to have as much naysayers after this one because the turnover tendencies have been a thing with him, but I just don't think it's going to be a factor in this game. Just given how he's played recently, he's playing like an MVP caliber quarterback, even though he's not going to get it. So yeah, I want to give them the edge, and I think the better team is going to win, which the Bills are playing as a better team right now. So yeah.
Should be a close one, man. I'm excited for this game. I think this is the one that I'm most excited for.
Yeah, it's definitely the closest game I have. Honestly,
Mhm.
all these games I have are close. So I'm probably going to be wrong on one of them. Oh, no, 49ers, yeah, blowout. But we'll see. You got the Packers. We'll see. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, let's see. Episode 82, though. That was everything I had, unless you guys wanted to add something else.
No, that was it. Thanks for having us on, my man.
For sure. Nahum, good to have you on. It's been a minute.
Pleasure being here.
Yeah. So, yeah, we'll see whenever you guys are available. Next time, come on the pod. If you guys want to come on next week, let me know. But yeah, that was episode 82 in the books, and we'll see you guys next time. Peace.